The opinions expressed in this program are not those of CISA 7 or Time Warner Cable.
What's your tomorrow?
All right. I'd like to call the board meeting to order.
And that would explain why I have to be here everything at home instead of my husband.
6 out of 7 board members are present. Chris Wagner is excused. To my left, Dr. Michelle Langenfeld, our superintendent, and Sandy Heller, our board secretary, is also joining us at the table, in addition to members of the superintendent's cabinet around the table. And we have Grace Sinclair from Preble High School. She's our Intercity Student Council president. And is Hunter coming? No, he's not able to come. Okay. First, we have our open forum. This is a chance for members of the community to speak before the board. Is there anyone who would like to speak before the board this evening? Seeing none, we will move to our agenda. First will be our teaching and learning work session, and that will be facilitated by Ed Dorff.
Thank you. Several items, and we'll start with the waiver request for Head Start Early Childhood Collaborative Classroom at Keller. I'm sorry, what am I doing here? No, okay, no, that's what I've got there. Oh, I've got an old sheet here in front of me.
He's got an old
Never
agenda.
mind.
Yeah.
That's why I don't have my computer. Okay, let's start over again. Weequahic Elementary School Children's Center for Environmental Science.
There you go.
We have Sarah Lane.
Threw a curve at me there, didn't you?
Hi there.
So as you may recall, we've talked with you before briefly about an opportunity that we've been exploring out at Weequahic around the environmental science and the opportunity to start a unique career pathway. I'm going to let Lori and Sarah give you some details, but if you pull up, we've got the PowerPoint on the screen. We're just going to walk you through a couple slides first for some background.
We are.
It's coming.
I pressed a button.
Ah.
Is it here? No. Sorry.
That's all right.
Let me go back over and pull it back up.
Are we only supposed to use this? I think only the rolling thing. It's all right.
This is.
I know. We could sing the Jeopardy song.
Yep, there should be a board report, and then when we met with Ed and Katie to talk about future presentations, I think you suggested that we also include the PowerPoint when we send it out to you so that you can pull it up on your computer. So we included that as well. Yep, yep. Having to look back all the time. Yep.
So I'll just turn mine.
Yeah, you
That's what I Sorry, friends.
That's all right.
Tell Lori we could hum the Jeopardy song for you if you'd like us to.
Oh, Sarah, how are things out of Weequahic today?
Awesome. I am the most blessed person in the world, I'm pretty sure.
How many students do you have out there?
170. We're up over 15% over the last...
170 or 117?
Yeah, 170. We're up over 15% over the last 3 years.
Nice, nice.
We were at 143 when I started there. Okay, just scroll to the scroll.
There we go. Thank you. All right, so just recall our mission statement. We educate all students to be college, career, and community ready, inspired to succeed in our diverse world. We believe that the information that we're going to share with you tonight obviously aligns in a variety of areas: academic excellence, engagement, thriving workforce, and also personalized pathways under the customized career pathways. The history is that so far as a board, you've approved Baylink Manufacturing, City Stadium Automotive, Bridges Construction, and the Children's Center for Engineering as we have walked you kind of through that exploration phase, discovery phase, implementation phase. Tonight, we are going to ask your permission to move from an exploration phase around environmental science at Weequahic Elementary School into the discovery phase. So just a little background, if you recall, Lori and I came last year. We kind of gave you a presentation on the phases that we go through before we bring these to you. And you asked that we come a little earlier and share what we've learned before we move into that next step and start putting in a lot of time and energy with community partners and other folks that we haven't already. So that's what we're here for tonight, okay? Sarah is going to talk you through what we've done so far in the exploration phase of exploring the pathway.
Yep, so 2 years ago, I guess it really started when I attended a national STEM conference and I learned more about just that interdisciplinary approach to teaching and learning and preparing students to really be thinkers and ready for jobs in STEM fields, many of which probably aren't even invented yet. The emphasis really on teaching children to be problem solvers. I was also able to bring teams of teachers to visit a STEM school in Waukesha, and we visited a school in Appleton. We learned more about their approach to instruction, again using problem-solving challenges and more of an interdisciplinary approach to learning. Then in January of last year, we hosted a discovery meeting at Weequahic, and we invited the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, Green and Healthy Schools reps, KEEP reps, which is Wisconsin's K-12 energy program, and LEAF reps, which is the Wisconsin K-12 forestry ed program. There were also folks from Red Smith, Edison, Preble, Teaching and Learning. And at that meeting, we kind of had a chance to think about using our environment as a means for a framework for instruction. It's sometimes called place-based learning. We also applied for and received a grant from the WEEP, which is Wisconsin Environmental Ed Board, for $5,000. So we've been using some of that money to help plan and explore further. Can you get it? Yep. Thank you. Last summer, 5 of our teachers attended a 5-day-long institute called No Teacher Left Inside. It was held at the Conserve School in Land O'Lakes, and they learned about aquaponics and bees and phenology and a host of other topics. And they also looked at the next-gen science standards and began to think about how their science units would align to those new standards. We met again last March as an Explore team with Victoria Rydberg, who's the DPI consultant for environmental ed. We discussed career pathways in environmental science, place-based learning, and then spent the majority of the day kind of connecting those curriculum dots to help build a framework. We continued that work in June, and we re-examined our social studies standards, our science standards, environmental standards, and the progression that learning takes place from 4K through 5th grade. And this was by far the most exciting day for me as a building leader because we kind of moved from what cool stuff we could do in environmental science to what is really the essential learning at each grade level and how does that progress through the grades. And then how can we meet the kids' learning needs with that environmental lens? And I think we have a really unique opportunity at Weequahic to do just that. So there's a link here. This is definitely a work in progress. This was kind of a culmination of our time together, but we really looked at the progression of learning with all those standards and how it moved through the grade levels. So from living things to plants in our environment to animals in our environment to the interdisciplinary or the interdependent relationship between plants and animals and so on, and how that learning progresses through the grades. It's, like I said, a work in progress, but our goal is that we would take all of the essential learning at each of those grade levels and develop a capstone project. So, for example, first grade is doing animals in our environment, and kindergarten is doing plants in our environment, and their capstone project will be to create a field guide from our forest in the back of the plants and animals that live in our environment. So that we definitely will be spending more time on this, but it gave us that framework, what we were looking for.
Okay. Got it.
So really, our goal is to have engaged learners, ready to be tomorrow's problem solvers. We've been pulling groups just this year focusing on the engineering design loop, and just to see the engagement that they have when the children are posed a challenge is really neat. It's really minds-on learning. So teaching and learning looks different. Up here you can see some of our first grade students from last year. They were studying phenology, which is the observations of plants and animals to observe changes. The first grade teacher learned about this at the No Teacher Left Inside Institute, and they used microscopes and iPads to notice and record the changes, and even in the winter they were able to snowshoe out to their assigned plant or tree or whatever they had chosen. Last year, the 4th and 5th graders were able to take 3 field trips to Baird's Creek to be part of a water study project. They tested the water and categorized the animals. They worked with Charlie Frisk, who also came to Weequahic to share his expertise. And they're going to take the knowledge they learned from that Baird's Creek water study and apply it to the water in the creek that's just down the road and compare the water results that they can find from, I don't know if the creek even has a name, but it's just down the road from Weequahic. Just a couple weeks ago, our 2 second grade classes, and we have the teachers with us here, they've been studying plants and animals in our environment, and they, in the creek environment that's down the road and in the forest environment, and they recreated those habitats in the classroom. The children researched and presented their findings to the rest of the school using iPads and 3D recreations of their chosen plant or animal. And then also this year, Josh DePaul came out and with a team of workers and helped improve the landscaping around the grounds of Weequahic. And, really that could have been done anywhere. That doesn't make us much different than any other school, except our teachers took the change in the environment and looked at the grade level learnings and wondered how that, what is the effect of changing the landscape. So for example, grade 1 focuses on animals in our environment. How did thinning and planting the new plants around our building affect the habitat of the animals that live in our environment? So.
And you did learn that a mouse lived in there, I think, right?
We had 2 mice in Mr. Jerry's office the next day.
After we changed their outside habitat.
Yes.
They came in.
They did.
Yeah.
Changed yours.
Yes. We actually do talk about our environment in the building as well.
So my role in working with Sarah and our team is working on the career pathways that are aligned to environmental science. So as we began this process, we also brought together our thinking partners, as Sarah had recommended, and we really had the intention of exploring 4 areas. First of all, the opportunities. Also, we wanted to communicate early with our potential partners so that they knew what we were thinking about. We wanted to lay the foundation, and finally, we wanted to conceptualize that career path. And as we work through this, it's really important to work with our partners to make sure that we have a good understanding of our environment, not only around the school, but also within our community, and for them to have an understanding of what our goals are so that they can support us. What we found is the following skills are required for environmental scientists and related careers. And as you look at that list, you can see that anything on that list could really be applied to almost any career. I did have walking the dog on there, and Sarah gave me, questioned me about that because I'm thinking, I don't know about any of you, but if you walk your dog, there's an environmental feature that is involved in being out in your neighborhood with your dog. So as you can see, we then looked at labor market. And environmental scientists, hydrologists, and geoscientists will experience the fastest growth in science-related fields. Careers in science require at least a bachelor's degree, and the salaries range from $56,000 annually to $95,000 annually and more. A major in environmental science, as you can see, you could be a fundraiser, a city planner, a lobbyist, a risk assessment specialist, a veterinarian, a lawyer. Almost any career in the 21st century could have and does have a foundation in environmental science. The next slide, and we did this when we brought you the Children's Center for Engineering as well, showed you how we take something very broad from the career cluster of STEM into environmental science, then into a program of study, which could be agri-science, food, and natural resources, and then a student would develop their own academic and career plan to support their personal career pathway. Currently, a student could look at any of the following programs of study based on the courses that we have in our school district, and I understand that that font is small, so for the purpose of the camera and anyone that is watching this presentation, we have agriculture and aquaponics, biotechnology, landscaping, large animal and vet science, small animal, wildlife management, environmental science, energy and society, introduction to engineering and design, and youth apprenticeship. So all of these courses currently would support a student who is looking at a program of science related to environmental science, or excuse me, a program of study related to environmental science. Then we took it one step further and looked at, well, what would a student who is interested in a program of study in agri-science, food, and natural resources, what might that look like? And this is what their courses may look like. I was asked by the math department to also add here where we have pre-calc that AP Stats would also be an important class for a student to have if they were interested in this program of study, because as Sarah has already mentioned, the students are already out really understanding statistics as they're monitoring plants and animals. And then finally, we wanted to give you a visual. We provided this visual when we presented the Children's Center for Engineering. This needs a little work yet because we're still in the planning phase, or the explore phase. But as you can see, the pathway, we have the students starting down here at Weequahic Elementary School, moving through middle and high school. The green path in the middle says academic and career plan, and then there are opportunities to go either NWTC or to a four-year college, so that the student has a lot of opportunity as they then pursue their ultimate goal of a career aligned to environmental science.
The kids got the chance to go to Baird's Creek, and these are some of their quotes that they came back with, as well as a picture.
I love the illustration.
And then Carla Cook is a first grade teacher, and she was using the EIE kit last year, which is engineering is elementary, and this is how she feels about that. We would like to reconvene the discovery team. We have some WEAP funding left. We need to refine the learning progressions and determine our future needs.
So one of the final things before we get to the last slide is, I think there's always that question of how does this look different, or how is this different than what we're doing in all of our elementary schools? And I think Nancy's not at the table, but she probably said it best when we brought the idea to the learning support team a couple weeks ago. It's really an opportunity for us to have a place where we really get in depth into that environmental science piece. So it is covered in all of our other schools. It's covered in our other curriculum and instruction. But this would be an opportunity for us to really dig in a lot deeper than what it's covered in all of those other schools and have that opportunity. The other pieces, as you may recall, we have had parents from the nature-based 4K approach us in a variety of places and say, my child has, been at the nature-based 4K and they're really learned a lot. They really would like to continue to have an opportunity. And Sarah will remind us a lot of times, we're not going to be the nature-based 4K where everything they do is outside, but they would like to continue to learn more in that environment and about the environment through environmental science. So it's a nice progression. We do have the capacity at Weequahic to expand. There are locations in the Weequahic building, spaces that could be reconfigured and changed around to take more students in, if that were the case. As you know, the nature-based 4K actually has a wait list every year, and they are also looking to expand to another section. So I do believe there is going to be a need for that as an opportunity and a pathway for our families. So really, we've kind of done the exploration stage. Our next stage would be more formal process of digging in, figuring out what does it look like even further, what are the costs that are associated with that, who could be a partner, do we have partners that are willing to support like the others have and come in with either resources or finances to help us do some of the things that we need to do. And we have 3 rock stars back here that have been a part of this process. If you have any questions about how it looks different to them, I think they'd be happy to share. So, come on up.
This is Erica Baton. She's a second grade teacher at Weequahic. And next to her is Michelle Van Leeshout. She's a kindergarten teacher at Weequahic. And Jennifer Bino is also a second grade teacher. We're considered a one-top school, but we have a little bubble at second grade, so we have 2 seconds. Yeah.
Do any of you want to share just a little bit about how this looks different for you or what you've experienced?
I'll go ahead and start. I know with my kinders, we just have a lot of fun getting, down and dirty in kindergarten. And we started off the year talking a lot about the plants. We went in our woods. We were able to utilize the woods. We took pictures of different plants that are in our woods. And then we came back in our classroom. We talked about those. And then we started aquaponics in our classroom. So we have lettuce and spinach growing. We tried a strawberry plant, but that didn't work. But at least we failed and we figured out how to create something different. We also planted radishes and onions and carrots in a little a planter that a parent donated to our classroom. It's a viewing thing where you can see the roots and stuff. And so my kids are really excited. They quite a few of them came from the Nature-Based Center, and they like to continue doing getting their hands dirty a little bit. Tomorrow we're going to be going back in the woods, and we're tying this in with writing. We're doing some nonfiction writing, so we're going to be getting artifacts from the woods and starting a writing unit on nonfiction, and I think the kids are really excited to be able to utilize their surroundings outside. I know our kids got to visit the second grade classrooms when they had their biomes, and they thought that was the coolest thing. And as a teacher, I was excited about it too, because I was trying to figure out how these ladies were going to do it, and they did it, and it was pretty exciting. So, and for our kids to get excited about that too, it was pretty amazing. So.
And I did kinder and then first and then second grade with this bubble of kids. So I've kind of been traveling with them, and last year we tied in the phonology. And so every week we went outside in the beginning of the year.
I'm not hearing that right. Did you say?
Phonology, it's just this ongoing study of plants.
P-H-R-E-N?
P-H, yeah, E-N. So that's something that I learned about when I went to that 5-day conference, and that was something that they were very passionate about. Their high school students were doing that. So I found a way we journaled about, they each chose a tree in the beginning of the year, and we have that beautiful grassland with all different trees, so they each got to choose one. And then throughout the year, we kind of looked at that tree's life cycle. In fall, when the leaves were falling, in spring when they were budding. But then in between, we were measuring them. Also at the conference, we got microscopes for the iPads. They went outside and they were able to use the microscopes and then create things on apps to display what they found. And then at the end, we kind of tied that into a journal at the end of the year. And they were very emotionally attached to their tree. I mean, they really loved, and it was just so cool to see kids that age really appreciating nature and wanting to go out. They read to their trees, and we were outside, and they just really, you could feel they had a bond. Now I have them as second graders, and we went outside in the first week of school to play a game. They're like, oh, can we go see our trees? They were really excited it was neat. It was a neat thing to see, and they learned a lot about that tree and just noticing those changes along the way. But I think Wickiuc is so unique in the way that it is. We see the bay. We can see the bay right over our school. We're totally in the country. We have the creek down the road. We have the forest in the backyard.
We got the cows next door.
We have cows. Today at recess, 10 deer were running down the road, and all the kids were outside, and they're like, oh, it was really cool. And now in second grade, teaching with Erica, we were able to go down to the creek, take observations of what animals and plants live there, why do those animals and plants live there, how are they dependent on each other, and then looking at the forest and comparing them. And then we were able to make the bubble biomes where they recreated that habitat. And they had to have those plants and animals and then explain why they were dependent on each other and needed each other. Do you want to talk about the garden?
So off of the topic of interdependence, the big thing that we do in second grade is the school garden. So last year in the spring we were talking about plant growth and development, and then we brought that out into the school garden and planted the garden. The second graders and then the first graders from last year worked together on that, and so then now those second graders this year worked on harvesting the garden and with the engineer design loop, looking at how we can improve that and how the whole interdependence of the plants and animals. We talked about pollinating and what animals will eat our plants, so we need to make sure we're planting the right kinds of things so that animals aren't going to eat all of them, and that we'll be able to harvest then in the fall.
And this week they were able to we harvested the garden a couple weeks ago, and just this week they were able to cut open the pumpkins and harvest the seeds, and we baked some of them and they got to eat some of the seeds, and then we dried some of them out to plant in the spring for our pumpkins, and then we also, with their carrots, they were able to eat their carrots too.
So can you share with the group how that also relates to social studies, math, language arts, and how you're incorporating all of that?
I think those big projects and even the little ones incorporate really everything. Even with their bubble biomes, they had to present in a way that other people were going to be able to understand what they were trying to teach them. and they had to do all the research. They had to learn what was in there, what it was the specific name, why is it dependent on what animals and plants. So they're really doing a lot of research with all of these things because it's real life and it ties right into our science and social studies standards. Along with language arts, they had to write and speak and really use that in a meaningful way.
With the garden, with the economic piece of it, we looked at what our gains and our losses were versus this is what we planted in the spring. Here's what we're harvesting in the fall. What were our gains and losses? And then we talked again about improvement and how can we make that better and make sure that we have gains from what we're planting.
How did you manage the garden between the spring and fall?
When the part of what we went into planning was we talked about what kinds of plants would be not ready until the fall and what kinds of, one of the things we planted was pumpkins because the leaves on the pumpkins help to keep weeds down. One of the other sections we did watermelon and we got a lot of weeds. And so that was something that we've already talked about improving as a class. This is what we're going to do for next time to help cut down on that. And they've talked about already coming with their families over summer and how we could add some of that in to help with those problems that we encountered.
They had Josh DePaul come out and talk to the students about the plants that would grow best in a garden.
And I think with kindergarten, one of our big science or social studies standards is how things change over time. So we're going to kind of incorporate what Jen did with the trees and how they change over time, but we're taking on more of the forest. And we took pictures of the plants that we saw in this fall, and we'll take pictures throughout the year and then kind of compare how those plants have changed over time. So you can just draw on so many different content areas in there. Besides the science, you got the social studies and the writing we're doing. We started to talk about the nonfiction writing a little bit today, but we'll really get into it later this week. So there's just so many possibilities to bring that science through the whole day. So,
Sarah, are the other 4 grades as involved as kindergarten and second grade are right now with what's going on? I mean, you really got a leg up on where you want to go here.
Right. Yeah, I think that everyone has bought in, for sure. I think Jen's had the chance to work, literally, she was a kindergarten teacher, then she went to be a first grade teacher, now she's a second grade teacher. She knows these kids very well, and she's also learned that same progression of learning that we want the kids to come out with. Mm-hmm. So I would say that she has a deep understanding of the progression of learning at each of those grades.
Does that stay together totally?
We mix them each year.
Okay, yeah.
So I've had some of them twice.
So,
exciting program. Couple of thoughts and questions. I see obviously one of your partners is UW Green Bay, and environmental sciences is one of the major focuses of that school. I'm sure you thought of that. There has to be some great opportunities for trips of your students going to the university and using a lot of those environmental science students in your classroom. What's going on with your thought process with them?
They attended our discovery meeting, and we haven't done a lot with them since then, but absolutely. UWGB is known for their environmental sciences.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can imagine that partnership with those students coming out. There's so much I want to do there.
You attended a conference, though, with GB, and who did you go with, Mike and Scott?
We went and looked at some playgrounds in Merrill.
Okay.
Some outdoor playgrounds.
So you traveled together, though,
yeah,
somewhere.
we had some really great conversations, with Scott Ashman and Mike Reed. But I can just see if we were to be able to have a greenhouse or a chicken coop or the other things. Just wait, Dr. Langenfeld. As the Cubs said, it's going to happen.
And I have a second question. This is probably for Kim. Have we thought about, we're talking about some of our youngsters from the Wildlife Sanctuary program going out there. Now that's a choice school and it would be their choice. We thought at all about some transportation help, like some focal points or pickup, because if you got some students on the west side, that's a pretty good hike out to Weekly.
Yeah, I think just just like with all of our customized pathways and/or pathways in general, we have a transportation task force that's starting to meet to explore the opportunities of how do we get better at transporting the students within our district to where they want to go. I think we've learned that with Da Vinci, you're able to hub pretty successfully, where if the students can get to a middle school location, we can continue to transport them to the next location they need to get to, and parents have been very willing to do that because it's their neighborhood school that they're actually getting them to. So I think we have lots of opportunities with transportation to be able to make sure that if students are interested, we're able to work that out.
Because I know transportation was one of the major focuses of our community task force. They
Correct.
thought how critical that was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Make sure they cover it tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it is on the agenda, and it was
Okay.
one of the major items, and I think it even is on the survey.
Good.
Discuss that a little bit.
Other questions? Brenda?
Now, you've had Red Smith, Edison, and Preble at least your initial meetings. Is there talk like we have at, with our pathways in other areas of continuing the pathway through Red Smith and Edison and Preble, or what is your thinking for the long term with that?
Well, I think one of the neat things about the environmental science piece is that it's pretty all-encompassing. I mean, you saw the list of things that students can do, so it's not quite as focused and specific as if you're starting an automotive pathway or, manufacturing. So I think it lends itself pretty well to the courses that we're already offering at particularly a high school level. We have some interest and want to continue as we get into the discovery phase. Again, that's where you start to really put some of the logistical pieces together, to having conversations with Smith and Edison in particular, just because we know, as we're learning with IB and many of the others, when the kids come out of that environment and that type of learning for a while, what happens next? So we think we need to make sure that we're aligned, so that when they get to that level, we have those opportunities as well. But again, I think at our secondary level, we offer a lot of really neat things that align already, where they'll have an opportunity to kind of get in there and then diverge in whatever direction they want to go.
Does Weequahic feed into just Red Smith? Yeah, okay. So having it at Edison, I mean, if you have a lot of students go there that could go back to Edison, but the students that attend Weequahic because they live in the Weequahic attendance area would go to Red Smith.
But through in-district transfer, they could go
Right.
to another school if there was something that we were offering there.
Yeah, I'm thinking about spreading ourselves too thin with Edison Red Smith and just maybe focusing initially on Red Smith with the idea that, we could expand it to Edison later or something.
Yeah. And we had Willie at our meeting, and he was pretty excited about some of the things that, they're already doing that he thought aligned well. Joe, the same thing. I think having the administrator there is important, but I think we would also want to expand that to those teachers. And we did have some science teachers at the initial meeting that we would want to bring back, because they're the ones that, just like these three, we did a lot of talking and what's this going to look like, and you had lots of questions about how is this different, and all of a sudden things just kind of start to click, and you can really start to see how it makes a difference in everything that you're doing. And I really applaud this group because they were very patient and very deliberate in making sure that if they were going to go down this road, they had a complete understanding of what they were getting into. And how it was going to make a difference in what they were doing, and that it was going to make a difference in what they were doing. It wasn't just something that we're calling something, that it's really truly changing the way that they're teaching and the things that they're doing in their classroom with their kids and their families. So this has been a long process. I think this is like year 3. And I think we're just finally getting to really see how this could have a great deal of potential.
Other questions? Katie?
Have you broached business and industry partners yet?
The only one that I've broached is because I'm on the board for the Farmery. Are you familiar with the new Farmery? And there is definitely an alignment with the work that they're doing. They also just entered a partnership with UWGB and are looking at a partnership with NWTC. So there are multiple opportunities. Green Bay is going green. So there will be lots of opportunities for us as we move forward.
Are we going to include industries that contribute to some of the environmental challenges as
Absolutely.
well? Okay, good.
Again, didn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves
Right,
before,
right.
you know, we came to you to let you know where we're at. And
Sure.
And all of that will come back to you then again, and our plan is in summer to come back then with a project planning document, and we should have more of that outlined for you at that time.
Well, I think this is excellent, and, you know, I think selfishly, because I have a grandson who's at the nature-based 4K right now, and I looked at this the other day, and I was just really, you know, wishing that he was closer to your school so that, but, you know, transportation may or may not be an issue, but.
You live close, though.
I was gonna say, you live awful
No, I'm
close.
close, true enough, yeah. If his mom would let him
You
live
could
with
go
me.
with.
Yeah, just gonna say, he just has to stay at Grandpa's house a lot.
You could go live with Grandpa, yeah.
So, okay, we'll move that forward then. You're looking for board approval or that you're moving to the discovery phase, and so, well done.
Yes, thank you.
Yes,
And a thank you to
very much.
Sarah, her leadership on this has been great.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
When did you start with the district, Sarah?
You want
Mr.
me to
Dorff hired me and.
Playing the part of Chris Wagner.
And what school was that? That was,
That was at Howe.
yeah, it is.
I will say, though, you can see Sarah's experience in the teaching and learning department come through.
Oh, sure,
In all of this. So when you've lived in that world and you know about standards and all of the things that go into a good, strong curriculum and instruction, she asks those questions. And I think it's
Trying
just,
to take credit for
teaching and learning, we're giving them some credit too. So, yeah.
Well done, thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to appreciate your energy. You can tell when you start when you talk, you smile. And you can tell that it's just energizing you as the teachers in the classroom and as the principal, and that's really great. So.
They're very invested. Their kids have gone through that school, and, you know,
It's great.
they
What's
own
your
it.
parent reaction then, Sarah?
We have discussed it in bits and pieces. We haven't really surveyed them or asked too much, but we have shared with them some of the things that we're doing that are different. For example, in my last newsletter, we put about the engineering design loop and how important it is to fail and improve and things like that. So.
And our kids really talk about it too, especially the engineering design loop. And I've been working with Carla. She and I have been trying to do STEM challenges like every other week. And so our first and kindergarten classes team up and we work together. And the kids are just so excited to be able to create things and know that it's okay to fail. But Sarah showed us a little clip on how the kids in kindergarten, they just go to it. They just want to create. If it fails, they create all over again. And we see that so much in what they're doing with the engineering design loop. And the kids are just so excited. They can't wait to those days, and I can't either. I love those days when we get the kids creating things and just challenging each other, thinking outside the box, and we don't give them enough time to do that, especially in kindergarten. They don't get enough time to just create things and test things out. And so I look forward to the days that, we can actually just spend an hour of our day creating things and testing and fixing them, and that's what it's all about, and unfortunately, our days get to be so packed sometimes that we don't give them the opportunities to do that. So now I think we are giving them the opportunity back. And the kids, you see this spark in their eyes now too. And they just enjoy it just as much as we do. So.
I do think it's fantastic. You're tapping into that natural curiosity that they have at those young ages. And they have the opportunity then to do that, as you say, explore and get dirty and have fun with it. Oh, this is fantastic.
So if you want to see it in action, we are doing an engineering design loop activity, a STEM activity Friday afternoon, about 2:30. So come on out if you want to see it in action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Lori, do I need to
You guys
go?
don't have to stick around. You can go. Nobody thinks you're rude.
Okay. Now that I have the right paper in front of me, and thanks to Diane, I've got my computer up and running again. So now we'll move on to the waiver request for Head Start Early Childhood Collaborative Classroom at Keller.
Sure.
And so,
We have a collaborative classroom opportunity that we're seeking a waiver so that we can make sure that it's allowed. We have Sally Jansen and Ann Barsh who will be sharing the details about this possibility we'd like a waiver for.
Hello again. I feel like I'm here every month lately.
Well, hopefully we'll be back soon about a grant being awarded to us. So that's what our fingers are crossed about. The reason we're here tonight is since the school year of 2014-2015, the Head Start and Early Childhood have had a collaborative class at Keller. And Sally, being the guru of Head Start, always does the requirement set for this and has written the waiver and has had this approved every year. But beginning this year, Head Start has asked that it goes through the school board for approval. And so that's why we're here tonight. I'll let Sally take over.
Actually, the collaborative, we've had a West Side Head Start Early Childhood Collaborative for over 20 years that started at Jackson School. And that model was always two separate classrooms, a Head Start teacher and an aide, and an Early Childhood Special Ed teacher and an aide in two separate classroom environments. And they would take the children and every other day they'd switch. They'd have like a Monday, Wednesday group, Tuesday, Thursday group, and they'd switch kids back and forth. We moved that classroom to Keller Elementary about 10 years ago. And it operated that way at the beginning, and then 3 years ago the new teachers and staff approached and asked if they could do it in more of a collaborative setting, meaning all kids together, 21 children in the morning, 21 in the afternoon. They have two classroom spaces, so plenty of space to meet the requirements of the 35 square feet per child, and then they do everything together in two different groups, and so there are two teachers and two classroom assistants. The reason for the waiver to the Office of Head Start is that there is a requirement that there be no more than 17 children in each classroom, and because we've expanded to 21 is the reason for the waiver request. And like Ann said, this year they've asked that it come to the board, so.
I think the term is well known to probably most everyone around the table, but would you please just spend a little bit of time explaining what we mean by a collaborative class?
Absolutely.
What does that entail, please?
Yes, absolutely. All of the 42 total Head Start, or children are Head Start children. 12 of them, 6 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon, are identified with a disability and are following an IEP or an individual education program. So the collaborative then is the term used for combining both Head Start, both the typically developing children without disability with the kids with disability
and
together.
And the staffing requirements, staffing implications with a collaborative class, please?
Well, it is required that there be a special ed early childhood teacher that is the one monitoring the children identified with disability. And actually, when 3 years ago, when we first talked about this model, we had Claudia around the table, and she had pointed out that the early childhood special ed teacher is not certified to teach regular ed. So in a collaborative setting, it works very well because it would be the same for the regular ed teacher with special ed kids. So by working together in a collaborative setting, we've got 2 teachers, 2 certifications, and working together on behalf of all of the children.
Questions? Okay, pretty straightforward, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time.
And next we have social studies electives, curriculum and content, course essential documents.
Yes, quite a bit of work has been done on the course essential documents, particularly this installment is related to our electives, and I have Beth Taylor here, our curriculum coordinator, who will be discussing the details of the work that's been done in the curriculum development in social studies for the elective courses.
Thank you. Good evening, board members. Tonight I return with the social studies electives that are the final installment of the renewed secondary social studies curriculum. So in October of 2015, essentially a year ago, the board approved the grade 6 through 11 course essential documents for the required social studies courses. Those courses are now in stages of implementation. The course essential documents in this proposal are for the social studies electives courses. These courses align vertically with the 6 through 11 required courses and also align vertically with post-secondary expectations. The courses, economics, psychology, sociology, and American government, have been offered as course electives in previous years. However, these courses are now offered as concurrent enrollment program courses with NWTC. The courses are based, therefore, on an integration of Wisconsin Model Academic Standards, the C3, the civics, the College Career and Civic Life National Framework, and in addition to that, the course competencies for each course from NWTC. The two courses, Contemporary World Issues and Law and Justice, are transformed versions of courses that have been offered in prior years and are based on the integration of the C3 and the Wisconsin Model Academic State Standards. These courses proposed are intended to support students who seek opportunities to bridge high school learning to college, career, and community readiness. Teachers representing all high schools participated in the development of the essential course documents for each of the courses, and they continue to work this year in collaborative curriculum teams to develop the curriculum maps, the common assessments, and to select materials where appropriate. We're asking the board to approve the social studies curriculum and the course essential documents for the social studies electives.
Questions, anyone? Andrew?
Yes, can you just explain a little bit more about the CEP and for courses that how it'll be different? For example, American Government, it has CEP and AP both listed.
Correct. So American Government is a course that the content aligned across AP and the concurrent enrollment program course. So when we took the course content for the NWTC course and what was expected for AP, we discovered that they align nicely. So that we can offer the course simultaneously. Students can either take it as a CEP course or they can take it as an AP course. And they can choose to take the AP assessment at the end. Of course, if they are enrolled in the course, then they're automatically enrolled in the CEP, and if they get a C or better, then they earn the 3 college credits at NWTC.
So will it be called AP American Government?
Yeah, in the course book it'll say AP American Government, and it'll have CEP after it. So that in the course book it shows up with the rest of the AP courses alphabetically.
Okay. Now, AP Psychology, a higher level course than regular psychology, does not qualify for CEP though?
It does. Well, it doesn't. The AP Psychology course is a 2-semester course. The CEP Psychology course is a single semester course. The rigor is different in the 2 different courses. So the AP course is transferable anywhere. The NWTC course is transferable 3 credits to NWTC.
Okay, so if you took the AP course, it wouldn't, but you would have to pass the AP test.
Correct.
To get the NWTC credits.
No. If you pass the AP test.
AP Psychology.
For AP Psychology, that's transferable to all colleges. And if you take the CEP Psychology course, that's 1 semester, those 3 credits are at NWTC.
Okay, so, but the higher level course, in this case, does not grant automatic NWTC credit?
No, it does not. 2 different courses. They run 2 different curriculums with 2 different sets of expectations. The content is different.
So would there be any things in the CEP, given that it's just 1 semester, is there anything that AP Psychology wouldn't cover that is in the CEP course? Or is it just that no mechanism exists for transcribing a 2-semester to a 1, no matter how much more rigorous the full year one is? Is that it?
Right.
Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Katie?
How transferable are the CEP credits?
The ones that are transferable for general studies, like psychology and sociology, with the universal transcribed credit agreement between the UW schools and NWTC, they're transferable to UW schools.
Okay.
That is nice.
Okay. Brenda?
This is kind of a little unrelated to the electives part of this, but I'm looking, and I think I asked this question before, but I can't remember. I'm looking at the, how civics is taught, and I'm looking at citizenship and global economics, thinking there's civics in there. And then I look at the fact that grade 9 has a choice of 2 different classes. So does advanced placement human geography also teach civics? Or do they get it somewhere else in the curriculum?
They will, if they were, the students who take the AP path of AP Human Geography, we would hope would then continue on that pathway to the AP World and the AP US History, and the civics will be embedded in the next AP classes.
Okay, but what if they don't?
Then they will go into their US History course, and the civics will be embedded into that course.
All right. Thank you. And then did you say there's civics embedded in the electives too, the economics?
Depends on the elective.
Class and you said it fast, I didn't register exactly what you said.
Right. So depending on the elective is where the standards have been, or how they're based on the standards. For example, the American Government CEP course is based on the civic standards. The economics course is based on the economic standards, the psychology course, the psychology standards, and so forth.
All right, thank you.
I would also say, related to the AP Human Geography question, not all districts offer an AP course at the 9th grade, and it's one of the accessible courses. And I was really happy to see it as part of our curriculum here, because I think it allows all students to take a more rigorous path. And I also explored what does it mean as far as making sure that the student population that's served in those courses is more representative of our entire district. And there are a lot of measures in place looking at how can we make sure the course is serving diverse students. So I think those are really important precursors and foundational work that was already in place. So I think the elective pieces that are here is part of this really complement that well, and it really shows the great work of the department.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I just want to clarify a little bit more about CEP, just because I had the experience of helping someone in a different state with her son's navigation of what is called in that state to be universally transcribed credits, and wasn't really a very good experience. The high school was supposed to transcribe to the 2-year college, but there was some glitch and he had to take it again anyways, and then the 2-year only transcribed over as an elective because it wasn't on a high enough level to meet a science standard because there wasn't enough lab or something. So essentially the guy who took had almost a 4.0 average, ended up taking essentially the same chemistry for the 3rd time. Is it lined up better here? And obviously science could be a little trickier, but if you take CEP psychology at one of our schools and you go to UWGB, do you get credit for, and you get your C or better, do you get credit for a psychology course that counts as psychology at Green Bay or Whitewater or Madison or anywhere, period, end of story?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's an agreement that's already in place between NWTC and UW system schools.
Okay.
So they have that agreement, and they have the document. It's online. You pull it up, and it shows you what are all transferable amongst the schools.
Okay, and it transcribes as the entry-level psychology
Intro to psychology
course. Okay, because in Washington State it's a little different. Some courses have a P after it, and then it can be a real mess. So I'm glad to see it's here that we are farther down that road. Courses would count, but only as to add up your number of electives.
Right, it would add to your electives.
Right.
These are a direct relationship to each other.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Although
Go ahead.
Sorry. I hadn't heard that they expanded it past Oshkosh and UWGB in terms of that whole general ed courses transferring automatically. Have they?
as far as that, the document that I have says UW system. So I would have to go back and double check on that.
Yeah, I'd be
and make
interested,
sure.
just so I know
Yeah,
when
could
I
we get
talk to
verification on
families,
that?
yeah.
I would be too.
Yeah, because I know it had been just Oshkosh, they added GB, but I hadn't heard that they added any more,
We can double
universities,
check and
yeah.
come back to the board. I had asked about, when we went through the documents, I asked about University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and that was verified. But
Yeah.
I think it would be important to check.
And you could just put that in the update.
Yeah.
Oh, do you know Nancy?
She says it's the whole system.
Oh, they changed it to the whole system? So
Including
students
Madison?
can transfer that automatically to Madison?
That's my understanding.
Yeah, that's my
Oh,
understanding.
okay.
We'll double check.
Huh, okay.
That would be new. That's new.
Right, that's what I thought too.
That would be, yeah.
That is huge.
It is.
Nancy and
big.
Kim are
Yeah.
always,
Yeah. Wow.
almost always right. And
And we end together.
but we'll double check just to make sure that.
Yeah, I'm interested in that whole,
Because it does sound spectacular.
yeah, that whole general education track.
Yeah.
Does that automatically transfer to Madison? That's what I'm interested in.
It's very specific courses that they've done that with, but that's my
Right, but it's
understanding.
the
I will
one
go and
that
look.
TC outlines as, yeah, that, the specific courses that transfer.
Great.
Okay.
Okay,
Any other
great.
questions? Good. We move that forward too.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
we have to schedule a special board meeting?
Yes, on the budget. Wanted to talk budget, and we had talked about it at the last budget meeting, I think, Andrew, and we like to just kind of, we talked about that exercise and just understanding the budget in our current reality, so we were thinking that would be an important thing to bring forward with the board.
And we're looking at,
Timeline, Andrew, what would be appropriate? Do you have any sense yet? How soon, how quickly do we need to proceed? And you were gonna bring the facilitator and,
Well, I think we need probably at least a month to organize that.
to organize it,
Yeah.
so we should look out in the month of December?
I'd say December, yeah.
Okay.
If we can find the night.
Well, you talked about a facilitator and playing a board game or something. Do we really need to go to that, to that level? I think we're smart enough to understand what we're looking at that without playing a board game, without playing a game. And obviously I haven't seen it, but it just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, I think the board game, and I've been through it a couple of different times, I think people walk away a lot of thank yous, a lot of I didn't know that. It kind of takes a general understanding of school finance and how that all works, and it doesn't get into the nuances of budgeting and some specifics like that, but it has a really good understanding of what really school finance is and some of the struggles and opportunities that schools face on an annual basis or even on a, so I think it's great, I really do. It's not a board game. It is a board game, you still roll dice, but you go through different scenarios, and as the different people in your group receive different, again, challenges and opportunities in different scenarios, it really is neat to see how it all plays out and how the different situations affect schools.
Does it address the WESA system, the coding system? I mean, that was the reason I brought that up when we met before, was the board's understanding of all those budget numbers. Sure. And the cost centers and just, what all that meant.
Sure. Have any of you guys gone, right before the Milwaukee conference, which starts on a Wednesday, they always offer some Tuesday opportunities, and there's one that's called the WASBO puzzles, so the business managers puzzles, but they put together 4 different pieces of different scenarios, and I helped facilitate that for years. But they talk about, as a district, again, where does your money come from? State aid, property taxes, what happens when you add a 4K program, or now what are the impact of vouchers and how that all impacts different situations. But that resulted, that Tuesday meeting resulted in this board game being developed. And again, it talks about just a really good understanding of what's kind of going on in schools and how our funding works and how that impacts how we address community communications. And it just is a really good, it doesn't get into the coding. It doesn't get into that specific.
See, when the question came up about, when a board member asked about, what's being spent on this, or, how are we accommodating that, or whether, take, for example, professional development. It's fairly easy to go into the accounting system and punch in the numbers and see that, okay, this is how much we're spending on professional development in this particular area. And the question I asked was whether or not the board had ever gone through any type of a primer on that, just, what that accounting system is all about, and how to access answers to the questions by using that system. That as opposed to the entire philosophical basis of budgeting and getting this more arcane. I don't know that, that's not where my question originated anyway.
Okay.
I appreciate that, Ed, but I think this might be an opportunity to, because we do have more experience with the budget, but if there's something that we can participate in that will help us teach others in the community about the budget, because as things get tighter and tighter, we need to be able to explain how schools are funded and help people to understand.
Okay.
And I think this might be.
I agree with that. I just don't want to lose sight of a basic nuts and bolts understanding of the coding
No,
system.
and I think we need to do both, but I think what you're proposing is a means for us to communicate budget 101 to the community.
Well, we'll probably learn too.
Yeah, it's a learning
Right.
It really is a learning
No,
opportunity.
right.
Yeah.
And I think, I quite frankly, it'll be a good teaching tool for staff.
Well,
If we can.
We're gonna do it as well. I mean, I think it's really important, and to your point, Katie, to really be able to articulate, but it also helps to understand where the money comes from, what you have control over and what you don't, and I think that's important as well. I have never been through the process, so I can't speak to it personally, but I know that there has not been a single administrator, whole communities come together prior to referendums and have had these conversations collectively with this. So I'm only going on reputation. I can't speak personally about it other than that, but it was well received in many communities, so.
But specifically about coding and whatnot, if you have some specific questions about how we're doing it or what's in certain areas, I guess.
Well,
I'm just.
I have asked in the past about how much was being, how much did certain things cost, how much it was, and I can't get an answer. Well, I know the information is there, and I know that you can go in and punch in the codes and find it out.
Okay.
So, I think we need to have that on the table. This is how things are coded. If you're looking for a particular item, if you're looking for a particular area where certain things are being spent, this is how you access it.
But it's my understanding that is not completely done yet, correct? The coding. You've moved to being able to do what you're asking to do, but in the past, the coding hasn't been to the detail that we've been able to pull that up. Is that right?
Some yes, some no.
Okay.
And I think we always could. It was the level of difficulty to get exactly what was needed. So formally, all of the teachers were coded into one packet. Now we've broken it out and we've always coded it to the function, which is the WHO, science, social studies, all the core subjects, all the, we've now have them out to the buildings. Before, to see the building level, you'd actually have to go into some different areas to find how they were, like almost like the number that's assigned to the individual. So now we do have them to the buildings. That's all done. But programmatically speaking, we should be able to. And I'm just trying to think of back. I apologize. I'm trying to think back of a time if it was asked of me that I haven't been able to. So I think again, if you have some specific questions that we can try to answer, but I think we need to go from there. I'm not aware of any problems that we have with the coding right now. I think for the most part, I'm comfortable with what we've done. And I think we should be able to provide information.
I think we should too.
Yeah.
All right.
you're
So
talking
back
a
to
month out?
schedule this scheduling this
Monday, the
meeting.
12th of December?
And what I would recommend is if we could get a couple dates, because what this is that you have to be certified in this. So I know a couple superintendents, Seymour and Denmark, those are two superintendents that are actually certified in delivering this board game and actually facilitating it. I know in Sun Prairie, where John came from, has several facilitators. I would need to I need to know how many people are gonna be participating and then organize enough facilitators to be able to deliver that. So if we could come up with one, maybe 2 nights to make sure.
Does the 12th work for everybody that's here?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and then, the only other day that week I'm available is the 15th.
And I'm not.
Okay, and then we have a board meeting probably the 19th, right? Yeah, so then we're probably looking into January. Is that too late?
I don't
You think that's
so.
okay?
We honestly, we might need that much time.
Oh, okay. So.
What's the name of this exercise?
I don't know the exact title, I apologize.
Andy, could you get something in writing and a link so that people
That's what I
could
was
look at it?
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the first week of January. And do we have school on the 2nd? No school on the 2nd? So would the 3rd?
Third, Tuesday the 3rd?
Tuesday the 3rd or Wednesday the 4th that week? I'm not available the 5th.
Does Tuesday the 3rd work with people?
It should. Kind of hard to tell now.
I don't see a problem, but it's a
Okay.
long time away, but should be fine.
It's only 2 months. All right. Why don't we give you this 12th and the 3rd? 12th of December and the 3rd of January. All right, and then we also have a meeting, Lori would like to have a meeting, right, Lori, to go over survey? See survey results. And if we can, November 28th would be the best day, because she has a task force meeting scheduled, or is going to on the 29th, and then the task force is coming to us on December 5th to present their report.
Let's do it early, because there's Packers are on Monday Night Football that night.
Okay. So,
5 o'clock.
so November 28th, it's always, Andrew, are you available, and how early do you want to start?
I think we'd probably do a 4:30.
4:30?
If that helps
Okay.
things along.
Yeah, I mean, it won't take,
I'm not sure, I guess it just,
Okay.
depends on how many questions people have, but otherwise.
Okay.
And if there's we also talked about if there, the guidelines that we give the task force, anything in that would change. So sort of that direction we provided. So based on the feedback, if there was something within the survey that made you change or make it more limited as to what you would accept
Okay.
recommendations based on community feedback, then just to have those developed.
You know, when you said that,
the task
that's what I was
force.
thinking.
Okay.
Let's cancel this season.
all right. All right, so 4:30, does that work for you, Julie? Yeah, okay. All right, 4:30 on November 28th then, for that. And then you'll let us know on the other 2 dates as soon as you find out, Andy? Okay. Are there any more meetings we have to schedule? All right.
Okay, well, that's all we have for teaching.
All right, thanks, Ed. And next is operations support, organizational support. Turn that over to, there isn't anything on it, but must be Andrew.
It's for Andrew to say.
So there are no items on either the business and finance or the human resource list, and I would assume the consent agenda would probably have a few employment items on it by that time.
Okay.
So that's it.
All right, thank you. We do have a closed session, so I'll read that motion. Special board meeting closed session has been scheduled for Monday, November 7th, immediately following the adjournment of the work session meetings pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851F, considering financial, medical, social, or personal histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would be likely to have a substantial adverse effect upon the reputation of any person referred to in such histories or data involved in such problems or investigations, to wit, personnel matters. And pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, more specifically to wit, potential contracts. The meeting will begin in open session to be considered the appropriate motion for a closed session so provided by law.
So moved.
Second.
Sandy?
Aye.
Aye. Carried 6-0. We'll go across the hall.